computer. All righty. Cool. Share screen. Oh, wrong one.
Got it. There we are.
Okay, share screen.
Whoop.
So why is that? That looks different on mine. Maybe
Yeah, I know. Oh, for some reason, everything went blank. Oh, here we go.
There we
I
go.
noticed that there's like it does that. So, okay.
Okay, so you can see that now, eh?
I see the mountain, a beautiful view of the mountains.
Oh, weird. Okay, so because shoot. Okay.
There, it's rolling up. It's scrolling. There we go. Yeah.
So you have it. Okay, I'm wondering what's getting recorded though, because I have two computer monitors going, and now
It does say recording in my upper left-hand corner.
Okay. Okay. All right. I sure hope it's good, because what I'm looking at is the mountains picture now. So when I moved it down or up, let me just try one more time. Sorry. I guess,
Sure, no problem.
I wonder. Okay, share screen. So desktop one. So now you can see it.
I see the dock.
It must be working. It must be working. I hope when we hand this in, it's not showing the mountains. Either way, it'll have the content. We'll be saying what we're talking about.
Yes.
So. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. Yeah, did you want to go first? Do you want to start going through your stuff? Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was more content than, I figured, we don't need to make the call 3 hours. So I didn't fill out every single statement.
Yeah.
So I went with the ones that resonate for.
Totally. Oh, it looks like you froze.
No.
There we go. Yeah, you froze for a sec there. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So tell them about strength. Strength can represent physical or mental. It's important to exercise and be active for your body to be physically strong. Mental strength is having fortitude to keep pushing forward, even when you want to give up. And I think for me, strength was definitely one of the ones that really resonated with me, because obviously my career choice as a personal trainer, I'm a very physically oriented person, physically driven, but also, I have a dance background. So movement and exercise, to some extent, the combination thereof, has been a major part of my life since I'm early teens.
Right.
And so, and going back to my level 1, I buried myself in my dance class and my schoolwork because of the personal situation happening the dynamic between my mother and my sister. And so I developed, I believe subconsciously initially, a mental strength as well, of like, I will get through this. Nothing is going to break me. If I'm hard on myself, nobody can be harder on me than me. And I developed this out of the norm from people who know me, are like, your discipline is like not normal. So I developed this mental strength, and the physical training and dancing when I was younger, and now more exercise, became like an outlet. So strength is a huge component for me that I would definitely share in my prayer. Tell them about courage. Courage is having the ability to stand up for yourself, your beliefs and values, against ridicule and judgment by others, and to face challenges life presents you. I never thought of myself as courageous. If people would say, what are some adjectives to describe you, that's most likely not one that would have initially come up. But when I saw it on the prayer, I'm like, oh, sorry, turn this down. I have more courage than I ever imagined that I did. And it's gotten me far. And so it means sometimes believing in your own values and standing up for what you believe in, even if it's not the general norm or the narrative or the majority. And I think that's so important, is to and not stomp on somebody else's feelings and values, because, billions of people in the world, we're going to have different opinions and views, but standing up for what you believe in, I think, is such an important sense of courage to not just go along with the flow and conform if it goes against your morals and values, without, of course, it never intentionally hurting other people. Tell them about love. Love is beautiful. It comes in many forms. Love of your parents, close friends, significant other. Love can be your passion for your job or hobbies you engage in. I don't know if there was more to that or not. If it scroll lower, can you scroll up a little bit more? Find what you love in life. And that's why that final sentence for me resonated quite a lot, is
Yeah.
I'm very blessed. I've been told by people close to me in my life over years, who've known me for many years, how lucky I am that I get to live my passion. I mean, I found my passion in my mid-30s is when I became a Pilates instructor, and then it became trainer and nutrition coach. And I truly have loved this journey. It certainly has had its challenges and very hard work, as we discussed before we started recording, and what's happening in our lives now. But loving, I mean, there's that cliche phrase, you love what you do, you never feel like you're working a day in your life.
Totally.
It still is work. So I have some, not sure how I feel about that statement, mixed feelings about it, because it is hard work. But it's different than if you're going to a job that you just do because you have to pay the bills or feed your kids, or even worst case scenario that you absolutely hate and just dread going to.
Yeah.
I can imagine, like, an example of the nurses and doctors in the height of COVID, before we knew it was happening. The heaviness of their work, even if they do love, because a lot of people go into medicine because they just love, it's just their calling, their passion. And finding what you love in life, whether it's your passion of your career, but which is a big part of our lives, right? Obviously, we spend a significant amount of our waking life working, but and you're engaged, I think, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Fiance. Yeah. So it's, and now that I've met Sean, I mean, I was married and I was in love a couple times in my life. Before I was married, I had a loving relationship too, but Sean, it's just different. And I feel like it's everything I've ever wanted in a partner, that I feel so blessed that I can honestly say, I feel like I've actually met my soulmate.
It's awesome. My
human soulmate for whatever time we have left on this planet. And to treasure, if you ever have that experience of love, it's one of the most amazing things. And my prayer, if I had a child, would be, find what you love in your life and live it and revel in that journey. And in that, I don't take for granted 1 minute, because Sean and I have had a long distance relationship, and having that presence of love has been amazing, and treasure every moment of it.
Beautiful. Love it.
Thank you, which goes right into companionship.
Yes.
Finding a partner, a soulmate, is one of the most wonderful, I'm going to move this over so I can see the word. One of the most wonderful and rewarding aspects of life. Be open to the possibility and cherish every moment when you find it.
Nice.
Building on what I said, I'm so fortunate that I've met who I believe is my soulmate. But being open to the possibility, because how many people settle for a mate, settle for a job, settle in a career, and yet there's maybe squashing where their passion lies. And it's scary, like to compliment and build on what we were talking again about at the beginning of the call. And what I know from our level 2 interaction is that time that you took when you left your day job to clear your mind, create space, to give yourself clarity of where you want to go on your journey. Where is your heart calling you? What is, and it's scary, but you look at how many people that we would deem as, quote, successful. And one of the examples I had heard was stories of Abraham Lincoln's, how many times he ran for public office and lost, repeated what people consider failures and losses, but he never gave up and ended up becoming not just president, but one of the most well-known, reputable presidents in
In
history.
history. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so that it's, you need these failures, you need these aspects of life to kind of just keep pushing forward, but not settling, and but going beyond, and be open to those possibilities is when you open the door to let something incredible in. Um, and
Awesome.
but it's interesting how they flow, because when you
Yes.
do that and you're persistent, persistence is an admirable quality. If you believe in yourself and what you're working towards, your ability to stay focused and not be distracted by temptations or setbacks will help you develop a deep strength. And persistence was, in my win coaching session, persistence was one of my win stories. Is, I think it's so important to look at where you've come from on your journey and where you're going, to open your mind up and realize how far you've come. And it's something I do with my clients when I'm coaching them, um, nutrition or whatever it is I'm coaching them on that they're trying to work through. I'm like, write down your wins, because when you're struggling, when you're having a tough day, you can go back and look at them and realize that if you're persistent and you keep pushing forward, changes will happen, even if it's baby steps, even if it's 2 steps forward, 3 forward, 1 or 2 back. An analogy or an example I give my clients is the stock market, because that's something everybody gets.
Yep.
Stock market doesn't always go up.
Right.
The scale doesn't always go down when you're trying to lose weight. So understanding that there's going to be that up and down, or as my
Yeah,
ex would say, taught me a lot about ebb and flow. Be
totally.
persistent, and if you're dedicated and disciplined and working towards something you believe in, persistence can be a huge contributing factor to getting there. Um, and being consistent.
Yeah.
So why don't we do 1 or 2 more, and then we can go back and forth, so it's a nice balance for
Yeah,
us.
sure.
So tell them about consistency. Being consistent throughout your life can prove to be quite beneficial. Consistency yields progress when you're committed to your goals.
Mm,
And, because we will have setbacks, we will move forwards and backwards, up and down. Being consistent and riding that wave, especially on the troughs and on the down swings, knowing that, okay, I had a failure, but a failure is to me a win, because it's
right.
a learning experience of what not to do next time.
Totally.
And embracing that and learning from it and using as a stepping stone to get to your next level. So being consistent to me is such an important step, a part of the process in making progress and moving forward, in trying to achieve your goals and just sticking with it.
Super cool. I love
Okay.
I love the just very well worded. Like and you have a great way. And like you say, there's a nice flow to it. It's like, one just kind of drifts into the next after you've finished it.
And I didn't, it's funny because I read it a bunch of times to proofread it. And, I got some general thoughts down, and based on our first call, and we were trying to sort out through the process.
Right.
And then I kind of went back and I just kind of pondered some things. And I really just like sat in my apartment in quiet, just letting it, whatever came up.
Yeah.
But I didn't, when I was reading it at the end, the last read through for myself was more of, the grammar, is it clear? Does it make sense? And it's
Yeah.
only now with you, when I'm reading it, that I'm like, wow, as I'm explaining my thought process in writing what I wrote for the prayer, now is the first time I'm feeling and sensing the flow.
Totally. It does have a nice flow. And the ones that really resonated for me, I mean, obviously strength is, I can see where that's like almost a number one value for you. It's got to be like one of your pillars, right? Strength
Mm-hmm.
is a huge one for you. And I like your take on courage too. I think there's a lot of folks that have, I imagine there's a lot of people that have that take on courage where they don't necessarily see it in themselves, because the way you see courage in like stories and movies, it's really this, this like hero type character, where a lot of the stuff that we're doing is a lot more subtle. But then when you look back on it, you're like, damn, like that was pretty courageous. And like courage shows up in different forms to me. Like being persistent is courageous. Being consistent is courageous, right? Consistent means you're showing up regardless of circumstances, regardless of the fact that you may fail, regardless of the fact you may get ridiculed or whatever may be there. That's it has negativity for it, but you're still going to show up. So to me, that's courage, right? So yeah, I really like how your take on courage, as far as it's like, you're not somebody you necessarily saw in yourself until you kind of look back and you're like, no, I'm courageous for sure. You're like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So super cool. Thanks for
Thank
sharing.
you.
Okay,
Oh,
so
my
you're on
pleasure.
confidence. So when we go back up, so yeah,
Yeah, let's do some Matt.
yeah. So this is kind of cool because we have different. I think everybody in this course is going to have different takes on this, which is the cool part about it, right? So that's why it's cool to
Absolutely.
share.
And it
So the
was
way
such a nice twist from 1 and 2 to just move in
yes,
a different direction and like,
very
wow.
different. I very much enjoyed this, the
Yeah,
Ancestors
me
mini
too.
course. Super cool. So, okay. So I did mine. I grouped them a little bit differently, sort of depending on, for, well, you'll see. I'll get into it before I start yakking here. So I just started right off the bat, and I didn't do as much of the, I just kind of kept it to one sentence as far as why I picked each one.
Oh, good.
So yeah, so tell them about life. Life is fragile and life is your masterpiece to create.
I love that phrase.
Yeah, thanks. I've always loved it too. I had to put it in there. I love the idea of create, you know what I mean? The creation. As soon as
I
somebody,
remember that came up in our coaching and too.
yes, absolutely. And then tell them about death. Death is the end of this lifetime, and then you will continue in the spirit realm. So I'm a very spiritual person, so I very much want to explore that whole concept and get that in, have those open conversations about that right off the bat, because that's very important to me.
That really resonated with me as well. I was like, yep, I get it.
Cool. Tell them about children. So the explanation as far as, who they are, and the one day that the circle of life, right? Tell them about children, and it's a great place to talk about, family and that type of thing. So one day you will have your own children and your own family. So, man, for like a little kid to kind of understand that, and for me to be able to explain that to some kids, would be really neat experience. That would just, man, it's like, yeah, I guess it gets you kind of emotional, just thinking about it, right? So these next four were my pillars of my values, my core values. So I did a lot of core value work over the last couple of years, specifically because I've never really done it before. And when I had put them out before, I was always like, well, this is kind of like a learned one. This is like my dad's value that he's like, okay, this is what you got to, or my mom's value, right? But I never really done it for myself. So these are the ones that I came up with just in the last year. So tell them about growth. So growth is something that you will do for your whole life, spiritually and mentally. So growth mindset to me is number one. That's absolutely number one. Got to keep growing.
It's a great pillar.
Right. Thanks. Tell them about acceptance. Acceptance is patience. Acceptance is faith in the process. Acceptance is huge. That's the one I'm currently working on. I like to control things, or pretend I'm controlling things. But
yeah, letting it ride
letting it ride. Absolutely.
Can be beautiful, and if you're someone who likes to kind of take charge, it can be a little unsettling, but wonderful when you can let it happen.
Absolutely. So it's just a matter of bringing my awareness to it and just playing with it. Tell them about harmony. So harmony is the balance of everything, the collaboration of everything. So I really like that. And
that's beautiful. Yeah.
And then tell them about courage. So that was kind of one that you and I both connect on for sure. So courage means you are afraid, but then you proceed anyways. So it isn't the absence of fear. It's the acknowledgement of fear, but proceeding anyways. So getting into comfort zones and things of that nature, right? So
to incorporate that, because that's not something I would, or I don't think, fear is not what the first thought came up, but I love that you integrated and how you're expressing it. It's not the absence of fear, it's with the presence of fear.
Yes.
That you stand up. That's
absolutely
a great way, a really wonderful twist of looking at it that I didn't see for myself. That's great.
Cool. Thanks. This one's been very important to me as well. I figured it worked as a good pair with courage. Tell them about adventure. Adventure is the spice of life. Seek adventure. So one of the core human needs, there's certainty, of course, and then strangely enough, there's always that duality, the uncertainty, the
Mhm.
spontaneity is what humans crave as well. So there's that. And then framing it as adventure, because it can either be an adventure or it can be a, oh my goodness, it can be dramatic. And, if you have the right attitude and you approach life as an adventure, no matter what happens to you, it's going to be, you can make it fun, you can make it light, or, it's all perspective, right? So I love the word adventure, the idea of adventure, and the attitude, living the attitude of adventure. So
That's great, but to build on when you say adventure is the spice of life, but what you just said, I look at life as an adventure. And if you look at it as one big adventure from birth till death,
yes,
then having that mindset is very empowering, because we know that life is going to present obstacles, hurdles, challenges, minor, and some of the major ones can come out of left field and you don't see them coming. And a lot of them you don't. I mean, nobody saw COVID coming, right? So
right.
when you think about and the impact that had on people's lives and the magnitude, it's, if you approach life as all of life, your whole life as an adventure, and I'm on this journey until it's my last breath on earth, then it really, even when you're having tough days, it's like seeing the glass is half full.
Yes.
Because
Beautiful.
adventure has such a, to me, and I don't know if you agree, but and I think from what you're saying, like a positive connotation.
Oh, big time.
And so this way it's, it's not even like you're trying to think, well, I need to be positive because, or I'm trying to avoid being negative because.
Right.
It's, I'm in this adventure and I'm living this adventure. And that's such a great, I love that too.
Cool. I love it. I was typing it. I don't know if you saw, I was typing
Yeah.
some of the stuff you were saying. It just filled it right out for me. So thanks. That was, really cool. I'm like,
Oh, sure.
what you're
I
saying,
just
I'm
want
like,
to
that's
read,
gold. I'm going to type it out.
look at life
So,
as one big adventure from life until death.
it's, one from life to death. There will be obstacles. Things will come out of left field. Keep this perspective of adventure. And a journey. The glass is half full. Seek adventure. So yeah, super cool. Tell them about truth. Truth is objective. We try and intersect with truth as much as we can, because we can't be, perspective. We have our certain perspectives and our filters that we see things through.
Mhm.
There's the objective truth, and our stories are kind of what, go weave in and out of the truth, but just try and intersect with truth as much as you can, instead of living in this fantasy world of whether it's drama or just not being, being too spaced out and not quite realizing, being aloof, right? So you gotta want to try and intersect with reality or truth as much as you can.
That's something I hope for in my daily, in my daily prayer is for truth, because there's so much intentional covering up of truth in our times today.
Right.
And
Yeah.
especially thinking specifically in the US,
Mm.
of intentional
Right.
censorship of truth for a narrative and an agenda that says a lot right there about truth.
So strange too, right? It's very, very discouraging, disheartening when you
Disheartening was the word that came to my
right?
mind initially. Yep.
For sure. And well, this goes very well with the next one. Tell them about deceit. Deceit is the manipulation and falsification of information. So,
oh, we have lots of that today.
right. Right. So, getting into that. Don't take whatever you hear at face value, right? Just do your own research. Don't believe everything you hear. Don't believe everything you read. There is deceit. There's truth and there's deceit. So I'm doing a lot of yin yang, right? Like the dualities of life is what I'm trying to do. And I'll just do a couple more. I'll pass the baton back to you.
Okay.
Tell them about triumph. Triumph is overcoming obstacles. So that goes very well with the whole adventure story, right? Or courage, right? It ties in with that. Tell them about heartbreak. Again, the duality. Heartbreak is part of growing up and getting old. It comes from loving something, and you will want to love in spite of heartbreak. You're never going to, you're going to, I think of my mom. She tries to guard herself because she's been through a couple marriages now. So she's, I'll never love again. But I know when she says that, I know her, that she's a big softie. She does want to love again, and she will. So that's the thing. It's like you will still experience it, but regardless of the worst heartbreak you can have, never holds a candle to the best love that you can feel, right? So yeah, explaining that, right? I remember my first, I don't know how it was for you, but my first breakup was this. I thought my life was over. I'm 24. I'm like, I will never love again. Like, no girl will ever make, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, it's the worst feeling for like a year and a half. You've never experienced it. It truly
Yeah,
is. Like, heartbreak
I
is
was about the same age, 25. Yep.
that, right? And it's such a, oh man, just a bad feeling. Maybe, it's but yeah, that's part of life though. That's kind of what it is. And lastly, before I pass it back to you, tell them about culture. So culture is the creativity and the art of your homeland. When I'm thinking culture, I think something that's unique to like the community, that speaks to like the artists in the community, the spirit, the collaboration of the community. So that's what I had for culture as well, and how important that is. So thanks for listening. I will
Absolutely.
scroll back up to, I believe you were at
I think it was confidence.
confidence, right?
Yeah.
Which is, where are we?
I
There we
wasn't sure
are.
how much to do. I just I wrote and I think I'm for myself to take out the think. When I have when some time window opens up, is I actually want to build on this for myself, just to,
Sure.
because I really enjoyed, like we discussed, this process was really great.
Absolutely. Yeah,
To
it's
have
great.
this different twist and perspective of a direction.
Absolutely.
Tell them about confidence. Live your life being confident in your decisions. Weigh out your options and do your best to make the most educated and mindful decisions you can. Follow your heart and intuition. Keep learning and growing. Stay open-minded, and that will build self-confidence. This goes hand in hand with courage for me. That would have been an interesting pair, because I like how you paired yours.
Right.
I think I stuck a bit more to how they were given. But I like this because confidence is definitely not, I don't need to use soft talk with this one, is not an adjective I would have used to describe myself back in the day at all. And growing up dancing, you go on auditions, there's 50 women for one job, and that's an understatement. Sometimes dozens more, or hundreds for two jobs.
Wow.
And so it's such a hard business to put yourself out there. It's constant rejection. And it is not even always about your technique or your skill. It's about, do you fit the costume? Are you the right height of what they're looking for? Maybe they need a blonde and you're a brunette. And there's just so many hypotheticals that it's hard to be confident, even if you feel that you are a great performer, a great dancer, a great singer. It takes its toll. And I definitely was not a confident person for many years of my life. And I think it's not just about confidence in who you are and what you do, but in your decisions. And that's sometimes, I think I used somewhere on the doc here about being a salmon swimming upstream. You might not always be in the majority of what everybody is saying as the way to do it, or what direction to move in. And again, if you stand up for what you believe in, is so long as you're not intentionally ever going out to hurt another human being, following your heart and your intuition is so important. And from my visceral background of, I do visceral massage, and that's part of what the course I'm building on.
Oh, cool.
Is understanding that inside our small intestines, the inner layer is actually the second highest concentration of nerves in our body, second to our brain.
Oh, wow.
So that the gut is actually the second brain.
I've heard that.
And so there's a direct correlation between your digestive system and your nervous system that you can't separate. And why I think that's so important is so much of the work that we do in Enlifted and with story work is dealing with emotions. And and when Mark references the breath, right? If you're breathing up there, you're in the sympathetic state. And now you're going to, so you're not just affecting your nervous system in a negative way, you're affecting your digestive system and pushing down your body's natural ability to trust your gut, your intuition.
Yeah.
And so, we want to, when we're making important decisions in our life, yes, we want to weigh out the logistic side of it, our brain side of, the pros and cons, but a lot of times, people could say, you got to be logical And my ex and I, this is where we were the complete opposites. He was the mathematical science, logic is this, there is no coincidence. There is no fate. Everything is a coincidence. This is the way that it is. If God exists, prove it. Everything in life had to be mathematical and scientifically proven. And so it's important. And I was the complete opposite of the emotional and go with your heart and always is fate. And, so
Yeah.
it's finding that balance. But I think it's so important. People often, if they're too scientific and logical, will base on what's logistic and not go with their heart and not go with the adventure side of life, to kind of connect
Right.
with youth, which is one of your pillars.
Yes.
If you're so logical, you may not do that adventurous XYZ because it feels like what you should do, but it may be completely illogical.
Right.
But it might feel where your heart and your intuition is taking you, because that's where your adventure is pulling you. So it was
Totally.
interesting how that kind of came into confidence for me.
Very much. I love that. That's such a full-bodied take on confidence, like to explain like that. Super cool. Yeah. Goes a lot of
And
different
it's
directions.
something I've never, which is what I loved about this prayer too, is I've never sat and pondered some of these basic
Exactly.
descriptive words in such
Yeah.
a way that I was like, wow, this is so powerful. And this could be a great way, even for people that you're not doing ancestor work with, for clients that are like, that don't want to get personal about their stories because they're
Yes.
just not ready to open up,
Yeah.
is just getting their perspective on these topics. So that was another idea that would be great to use this in coaching.
It's funny you mentioned that. Like, I was just thinking that as you and I have been going back and forth, very much so. It's like, and fine, like this would have been great for me to do a couple of years ago. And I was like, okay, what are my, my values and such? Because that's kind of what it's doing. It's not only, it gets you out of your head, because it's like, okay, what would I be? I love it's the idea that you're sharing it with like a young one or something. But the same token, to your point, is very much bringing that up inside you. What does this mean to me? What does this word actually mean to me? Right. So super cool.
And I never thought about, that's the beauty of, I think, when we get together on these co-coaching calls, together, it's like, I didn't notice the flow until you commented on it. I was like, wow, there is a flow here. I didn't feel that. I didn't pick up on that. But I actually want to start putting some of these, without getting into the full prayer context. I just had the idea of pick like a couple and just sneak them on the dock when you're working with a client who,
Yes.
just to kind of help them to open up if maybe they're not ready to get into their
It's a great
deep
idea.
stories.
Great idea.
Tell them about laughter. Incorporate laughter into your daily life as best you can. It's necessary to find that balance to offset the hardships and challenges that life presents. And, thinking about just like, great example, COVID and all of that darkness and heaviness, that it's like a dark cloud that's been following the world for 2 years.
Yeah.
And, the loss of life. Like, I personally lost my mother. I'm not to COVID, but during that time, and
During the time,
the magnitude of the heaviness, and how that heaviness goes into fear, and how that fear becomes like this blanket of just this weight over us, and finding, even in the darkest days, if possible, however possible, or in times when you're struggling, to find laughter. That's why I said as best you can, because I wasn't able to find laughter after my mother passed.
for sure.
But when you are conscious that it's lacking, at least, and that's such a key point. But being balance in everything, but incorporating laughter in the heavy times, the dark days, however possible, if possible, it's worth the effort. And even if it's a fleeting moment of somebody says something and or reminds you of a story, and you laugh, and even it's not going to take away the pain and the hardship, but it creates even a moment of parasympathetic or down regulating from high level sympathetic. And that's important for mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual state.
For sure. I love the wording of balance, to balance and offset. That's one of the greatest traits of laughter, is to be able to balance and offset, the other side of things. So for me, some of the most powerful times is when you can take, like you say, when you can find something in, like when I go to think my celebration of life for my dad, the majority of it is just sharing stories and laughing. And it's like, it has the same kind of release that crying does, but instead of crying, it's like it's like it's moving energy inside you,
Yes.
almost like nothing else can, right?
Yep.
And so yeah, super cool. I'm glad
Key important thing, keyword energy that you said there, because in my meditation cert, they're talking so much about the teacher uses the phrase very often, chi follows focus. Wherever you bring your focus,
Yep.
that's where your energy goes.
Right.
And in a meditative standpoint, if you're trying to bring some healing to an organ or something, or deal with a negative emotion and find the positive emotion side of it, the opposite, right? The virtue of what's good about like impatience versus patience, right? And work through that. And that fits in training as well, right? If you bring your focus to your core, you're going to be able to have a cleaner lift. But finding how that energy is in every aspect of our lives.
Right.
Keyword there.
Super cool.
I'll do one more and then we'll go back to you.
Sure.
Okay. Tell them about addiction. Addiction to anything can be risky and potentially harmful. Moderation is the key to maintaining balance and being in control of yourself and your surrounding environment. And being that you highlighted balance in the one before, I didn't even realize that there was a parallel there, but
yes.
I mean, to me, addiction is the absence, in an extreme situation, absence of balance, right? For someone that wakes up in the morning, first thing they do is reach for that glass of alcohol.
Yep.
I mean, I know someone that she was first thing in the morning before I didn't start my day without a drink. And this was after she went to AA. But it's, depending on the degree of addiction, and I think addiction is very prevalent in society. And I would never think that I have addictions but I do have an addictive personality. And in talking with Sean, I realized that I am very much an addictive person, like in some ways addictive. I mean, not exercise where I'm like going for 5 hours of exercise and not eating and like that kind of psycho addiction, but addiction to, I'm actually addicted to my health. My health is so much a priority of me that I realize I need to find balance. Like I track my food, and Sean's like, take a little break from that. Like give yourself, let your mind be free. And I think addiction can be interpreted in beyond the obvious of a drug addiction, alcohol addiction, gambling addiction. Those are the ones that come to mind for people initially, but understanding like OCD and addictive personality is a thing in society that I think people need to be aware of. That's why I say it can be risky and potentially harmful, because it might not be, well, I don't do drugs. I don't drink a lot of alcohol. I'm not an addict.
Right.
And, we kind of lump it in some general categories, but addiction can go much broader, I think, in life. So.
100%. Yeah. Addiction can be, it's like, like you say, addictive behavior, something they're doing on autopilot that remains unchecked. And to you, like to your point, could potentially be hazardous to your health or to other people. And yeah, like you say, it doesn't have to be the Mount Rushmore of addictions, drugs, alcohol, the different other ones. But yeah, absolutely. It can be.
Mine was cleaning my apartment, and I know why. I had that for a while. That was, I'm not hurting anybody. It's great, but it had its downsides for sure.
Sure. For sure. No, that's a good, I believe I have addiction because it's very close to me. So I am quite certain I have that one in mind as well. So let's go see.
Okay.
All right. Culture. Okay.
We finished the culture.
So culture. So I went on to community. So then tell them about community. So we've talked about the culture of the community, but the community itself. So community is your tribe. It's your neighbors, your crew, your people. So the importance of having neighbors, like I'm in a neighborhood here that's, everybody's been in this neighborhood for anywhere from like 40 years. Like we're the new kids in the block, even though we've been here like 10 years. The neighbors, we all look out for each other. We know when each other are going for holidays. So, okay, I'll watch your house. Like I'll make sure nobody's coming around, that kind of old school feel. And that's what I grew up in as well, that kind of neighborhood. So, that's cool to me. That means a lot to me to know my neighbors, be able to have conversations with them, go to the gym, and, these are the folks that are in my community. So that's super cool. I wanted to have that in there, the importance of community.
It's part of, and I think I've mentioned this to you in our other calls, but I've been all over Canada. I've spent a lot of time in Canada traveling vacations, and Canadians are just amazing, friendly, wonderful, loving people. I've been there more times to Canada than any other country
Oh,
outside of,
cool.
traveling domestically.
Yeah, yeah.
And really, there is a wonderful sense, and I could say it as a outsider, meaning a non-Canadian looking in. Your nation, from my experience, is one of the most beautiful senses of community I've ever experienced
That's super
in
cool to
my
hear.
travels.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's cool. You definitely, you can feel it, right? And just like wherever we travel in Canada, especially like we were down in Banff, I know there was a big part. You're telling
Oh,
some funny stories there. And, you go to a place like that, like how can you be uptight or rude or anything? It's one of the most beautiful spots in the world,
it
or at
is
least in Canada,
stunning.
really in the
Bam,
world as far as,
beautiful.
right? So it's like, how can you be uptight in that? So yeah, there's just that feel of just just being gratitude and happy to be there, and just like how could
Mhm.
you not be energized by that, right? So that's a big one. Excuse me. Imagination. I love this one. So tell them about imagination. Imagination is what creates everything we see. It's extremely important. So if you can see it in your mind, you can see it in your life. That's just how you manifest things. So imagination, especially when you're a kid, that's my favorite part about kids, is they can use their imagination to create a fort out of like a couch. All of a sudden becomes a spaceship. I love that stuff. I watch them play. I'm like, man, imagination is just so cool. So that one, yeah. And then started to get into a little bit more, just about the planet that we live in. So the planet, tell them about our planet. The planet is our mother. It gives us life. It supports us. It educates
Mhm.
us. Tell them about the nature on the planet. So nature is where we're from. Nature has the ultimate intelligence. Nature is the ultimate artist. Tell them about dinosaurs, because dinosaurs are fucking rad. I put down. So, I mean, every kid likes dinosaurs. I like Jurassic Park, so we'll watch a couple movies
Yep.
maybe. So I got, man, the whole dinosaur thing is cool. So I had this tongue in cheek a little bit, but I had to throw it in.
All good.
Tell them about the galaxy. The galaxy is our neighborhood in outer space. I love getting into the whole space thing, right? Tell them about the universe. The universe is the endless everything in all directions of space. At that point, you can start getting into the spirituality part. Like, yes, the
Mhm.
universe, asking the universe, getting into the manifestation part of things. So, just kind of expanding outwards from the planet as far out as you can go.
Yeah.
And tell them that anything is possible. I remember my mom told me this when I think I was 18. I just graduated, and my mom used to rent this cabin out of the lake. And yeah, I went out there, and it was just me and her, and hopefully I'm not going to get emotional when I say this, but yeah, she took me aside and she's like, Matt, she put her hand on my leg and said, I know now that you're out of school, you did a great job. I just want you to know that if you put your mind to anything, you can do anything that you want. So this is your time to really, and just like, the time I'm like, mom, thanks. Like, 18 years old, but it's stuck with me, it's just such a cool thing to have my mom to tell me that.
Mhm.
And it really did it. I hear it in my head, as much as we hear these, like the inner critic and the imposter syndrome here and there. I hear that one a lot.
And that's so fantastic. And it's like you never know when a
Yep.
um, pearl of wisdom, if you want to think of it that way, comes out from whether it's a parent, a significant other, a friend, that sticks with you. And especially at that age, it's like, oh yeah, mom, you don't realize. And then as you get older, it's like, wow,
Yeah,
that one moment in time, that one sentence that she said, how that's created such an amazing framework
it did. Yeah.
for you. And think now, if she hadn't said that one sentence, and that's something that you said, it is even more amazing that people do live with imposter syndrome, and you're like, that's been it for me. Like, to have that, the value of that one moment in time, like a drop, when you think about the universe, like
Yep.
a nanosecond in the
Yep.
universe,
Literally.
whatever that would mean. I don't
Yeah.
understand what nanosecond even is, but
Yeah. Yeah.
how finite and glimpse, snap of a finger, blink of an eye, and that one moment in time in your younger years, how that's helped form the man that you are today, and everything
Yeah.
that you, so much of, if not everything, that's so binary, right? But so much of what you stand for and what's been your driving force. I mean, that, and I love
Yeah.
the time plus energy equals possible.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So yeah, Totally. Thanks. Thanks for sharing your take on it. It's super cool. And so that's why I want to be able, that's when we're getting into like generational things here. This is something that I would want to then be able to pass down and even use that as a story, that framework. Okay. You know, my mom had this conversation with me as well, set the table a little bit before I say it. And then when I say it, it's just like, so now I get to say this to you and say it in a similar fashion, and then just have it like resonate throughout this, like, you know, few generations, this message, and just kind of see where it goes. So I thought that was super cool. I got a few left, but do you want to go back up and do?
No, we can just stick with you. Yeah, and then we'll go back. I don't know how many I did, so we don't have to necessarily.
Okay, sure. So funny thing here is the addiction one. So I said, tell them about addiction. Addiction is the mindless use of something to cover a trauma or pain.
That's a wonderful description of it.
That's what I was. You know, this is I've been thinking about this a lot because I was very much into alcohol consumption, so shall we say, for my entire 20s and some of my 30s. Very similar to what you said about your friend. I would wake up and crack a beer, and that's how I'd start my day for years. You know, being in music and all that, it was like the one job that you get paid in beer. They encourage you to drink on the job, right? So I did. So that's that. And you know what? It's just, again, in this last like year and a half or so that I've really been doing this inner work. I heard a quote from Gabor Mate, who's done a lot. He's a Canadian, and he's done a lot of like work on addiction. And he said, addiction is the secondary problem that we spend all our time focusing on without spending enough time on the primary problem, why we have that addiction in the first place. What's behind the addiction, right? So I was like, damn, man, I wish I knew that like 20 years ago. No, but no, I was like, yeah, so that's what it is like there. And the reason, perhaps, you know, I imagine when you're cleaning your apartment, maybe there's something that's bothering you. So you have to get your mind on cleaning, because otherwise there's something coming up inside you that you're not necessarily ready to do, right? Exactly. Totally.
I think Jordan Peterson, because I know he's Canadian, has definitely stumbled on some of his videos and podcasts here and there and piecemeal. But I remember hearing him making a reference about addiction, and he says so many powerful things. And when he speaks, it's like, but it's eluding me what the specific reference was. But yeah, that's a great quote.
I'll look it up. Yeah, I know because he himself, Jordan Peterson, had like a opioid pain pill addiction or something along those lines. He had to come out.
I know he was sick for a while recently, and there was an issue there. So I don't know if it was at that time or not, but
right. Yeah, he is very well spoken. He's one of those guys where he says a sentence and you're like, I get it.
Yeah,
you know,
that where you're like at the moment, or also to me, some of the stuff I'm like, that went right over my head, and I paid attention, and he's just so like a level of intelligence above the average that it's like, what does that even mean? Sometimes.
Like I get the spirit of what you're saying, but totally. So in addiction, of course, I did the duality, kind of a recurring theme here. So recovery is returning to optimal health and reclaiming something that was lost, forgotten, or stolen. So, you know, I get a little bit of victim mentality in there, but I think a lot of times, you know, that's you have to get out of that. That's that stagnant part that created this. You're in your addiction, you're stuck. To get out of it and start recovering, you have to acknowledge that there's something lost or forgotten about yourself that you have to tap back into, and then that helps you get the energy to come out of it. So that was my take on recovery. Tell them about music. So music is the universal language, and then at that point I'd give them a guitar and we jam. And then last one, tell them about books. Books keep your brain sharp and your imagination active. So books are important, and that goes in with the growth. Lifelong learner. You got to keep growing, keep reading books.
Yep, absolutely.
That is my final
Being
one.
open to that process of learning.
Absolutely.
That's something I'm grateful for. I every day have my list of things I'm grateful for.
Cool.
Life, health, but not everybody has an open mind and a desire to learn. And the fact that, and I think it's like you were saying, we were talking about common sense, and there was something that you were referencing is, what was the word you said earlier? You're like, you're not born with it. You don't learn it. You're
like attitude,
the
attitude you bring to life. Yeah.
Yes. And to me, having a desire to continue learning Not just, okay, I'm going to school because I have to, my parents says I have to go.
Yeah.
But at our age where we continue, that's why we're sitting together right now, our desire to learn
Totally.
and grow and be open to the Enlifted method or to X, Y, Z, but it's just being open, and that's when you're closed, growth is not possible,
Like we said earlier,
or is very limited at least.
very limited. Yeah. It's kind of like that thing. It's like whether it's complacency or just the ego saying, you know what, I've heard this before. Like, I know, kind of like, I know, I already know that. Don't tell me about it. Kind of thing, like the dismissive sort of nature that the ego can take on.
Mhm.
But I like the way you say open. When I hear open, that means to me that's growth. When you're
Well,
open to
and that's
something, that
where
means,
creativity happens,
yeah,
when you stay open.
exactly.
Yep.
Totally.
Tell them about fear. Fear can be positive and negative. Fear can be good, as it can keep you alert in a dangerous situation.
Mm,
Living in fear can have a severe negative impact on your mental, physical, and emotional well-being.
mm.
Because fear does have, for most people, when they hear the word fear, they would think of absolute negative connotation. But it's almost like stress, right? So,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
didn't think about that till now, but people say, because I remember hearing this in a number of different interviews and over years past, like, not just recent history, but further back, when people ask this question, and giving a presentation, well, it's like, oh, well, if someone asks you, is stress bad? Most people would say yes, but it's not always bad,
Right.
because you need
Exactly.
stress, right? You want to stress your muscles and your bones to build more muscle strength and bone density. You have to
Exactly.
load your body, your bones, your muscles, your joints to build strength. And under that load is when the muscle fibers have micro tears, and then they build back better. Or your bones, just as soon as I heard that phrase, I thought of the Biden thing. I was like, oh, um, but it's when your body is put under load and put under a demand, a stressful demand, that it then steps up, and that's how you build strength physically. But in
Absolutely.
terms of stress, a little bit of stress emotionally is good, because it can open your mind up to other possibilities, or maybe I need to do something a different way because I've been doing it this way for so long, and this is not serving me positively. Maybe you're staying in a job or relationship too long, and it's creating a stress, but you're afraid of change, so you kind of stick with it, and that stress is not good. But when you realize it, it might, going back to the word open your mind and eyes and heart to change. So I think fear has to be, or should be, looked at, because what may have more of a negative in terms of the scale, a little bit of fear, like if, an example would, very common generic example, you're a woman walking alone on a street at
Mm,
nighttime, and you feel like, I need to be a little bit more aware than I would be if it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon and there
sure.
were a lot of people around. So a
Yeah.
little bit of fear can just create an edge. Or as a performer, you're
Mm,
fearful, right? There's a nervousness when you're about to go on
yes.
stage,
Yeah.
and it keeps you alert and in the moment. So that's why I
Totally.
thought it was important to open
Differentiate.
the conversation up, that fear is not always bad
Yeah. I like that. I
or
like to
negative.
get, because as soon as you said stress, like that's what I was thinking too, because there's good stress, bad stress. It's very similar. There's good fear, bad fear, right? In that sense, right? So super cool that you differentiated
Thanks.
the two.
And then doubt. Doubt can seep into many thoughts that you have and decisions that you make. There are no guarantees in life, no crystal ball to know if what you decide is the quote right decision at the time. Trust your heart and intuition to guide you based upon what knowledge of the facts you have. And it's interesting, because I noticed that, and I forgot what the statement was, but I referenced going with your gut and your heart and intuition in another one. I just don't know which one it was now, but
That's right. Yeah.
um, because doubt opens up that door of the soft talk.
Definitely.
Can I lose
Definitely.
this weight? Can I
Yeah.
blank? And once doubt seeps in, then you're opening up the door for the I can't to come in.
It's a good point. I've never thought of it
And
like that.
I remember when I was powerlifting training, because that's my coach's background, and he was like, let's do a powerlifting competition. And I was like, I'm 48, dude. Like, come on. Like, now I'm going to start powerlifting. I'm not in
Yeah.
my 20s. And he's like, why not? And I was like, point taken. All right, let's do it. Sure, let's train for a powerlifting competition. And so
Cool.
on that journey, I'm at me like 120 pounds coming in trying to lift a bar. This was actually just before COVID is when I hit my first PR, and then COVID happened and I
Cool.
never got to compete. Everything was canceled. But I remember, I'll never forget, he said to me, because powerlifting is different than just going to the gym. Like you're in a competition and the whole goal is to lift the heaviest weight you think you can one time, right?
Right.
That's what powerlifting is. You get a couple
Man,
chances, but you get one rep. If you can walk up to the bar and
crazy.
you can't get the bar off the ground,
Yeah.
okay, that's your turn. Next. And
Wow.
so he
Yeah.
says, if you walk up to the bar, even in the training session, knowing, okay, we're getting heavier here. I've never lifted X weight before. He's like, if you walk up to the bar saying to yourself, I don't know if I can lift this.
Mm,
He's like, the odds of you getting the bar off the ground are, if not zero, way, way less.
interesting. Yeah.
You have to go up to the bar like you are going to crank that off the floor and
Mm,
break the bar pulling it up.
yeah.
Well, whether you can get the bar up or not is another aspect of it. That's a different conversation. But you
Right.
have to walk up to the bar like you were
With,
going to rip it off the ground.
yeah.
And you cannot let doubt seep in that scenario. And
That's
that
cool.
was 2019, 2020 when he said that to me. And I'm like, and he's half my age. I could be his mom. And I was like, but in a training perspective, that applies to life. How much doubt you have about your ability to do anything could make or break every aspect of your life. So I think
Right.
that was a huge one for me, because I've always, take back the binary, because I lacked a lot of self-confidence. Doubt overpowered it.
I like what you say. I've never heard of it phrased as doubt is sort of like the gateway to soft talk. Like, because it is. It's like as soon as you have that little gremlin of doubt comes in, that's when the soft talk starts coming in. That's when you don't feel the confidence. The solid talk leaves or potentially can leave, right? And
Can
so
you
yeah,
I'm gonna put that in there, gateway
that's
to
really
soft
cool.
talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I
If you
can
could scroll back up and just that would be
I'll just put it
maybe at the bottom. Yeah,
on the
gateway to
bottom.
soft
Yeah.
talk. I like your
Yeah.
take on that.
Is the It's very important to remember. I never connected it like that.
It just rolled off my tongue, but now
Yeah,
that you pointed that is a really great way of looking at it.
absolutely.
Heartbreak obviously came up for me too. Heartbreak can come from the end. And it's helpful to remember that when one door closes, another one opens, as you have room
Mm.
in your mind and heart for something new.
Ooh, I love that. That end part is just beautiful.
Thank you. Because it is another one of those, when we hear heartbreak, when we hear the word, it has a negative connotation, and
Sure
it's
does.
like
Yeah.
a downer, and oh, it's bad, therefore let me avoid it. But it's not
Right.
something that we can avoid in life, most likely. And if you can, then I don't initially was like, well, if you can avoid heartbreak, then power to you. But I'm not so sure I feel that way now.
No, I don't think so either.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would have been what I would have thought years ago.
Sure.
If you can get through life without heartbreak, then you've managed to get through life without heartbreak. Good for you. But no, now that I think about it, no, I don't think power to you at all. I
Oh.
think you're missing out on amazing opportunity for growth. Going back to your one of
Oh,
your pillars,
absolutely.
an
Yeah, just that
important
last
thing
way
in life.
that last sentence is just amazing. Yeah, the fact that you're removing something and now there's this allowance for this new energy to come in. So, you know what I mean? That's super cool. Just beautiful.
And it's thank you. And I think it's interesting because with Sean and I being long distance, and I know I mentioned in one of our calls that or
Yeah.
maybe even on the group call, because I swore I did not want a long distance, and we met on the website, and people from wherever, not just locally. I mean, I had 3 people from Nova Scotia message me from the website. I'm like,
Nice.
you're in Nova
Yeah.
Scotia. I
How can
love
we
Nova Scotia, but you're
Yeah.
far away.
Yeah,
How are we
that's
gonna get to
always
know
fun.
each other? And to me,
Yeah.
Sean was far away. I'm like, 6 hours is far away. You're
It's
not
always
like,
yeah.
hey, let's have dinner tomorrow.
Well,
And
sure. Yeah.
so I was completely closed, and it wasn't even for a heartbreak situation. It was just, but because I allowed myself to be open and keep that door of communication open because of the man that he was so wonderful and just won me over. It's not example the heartbreak, but in terms of that last sentence of, because I let my heart be open, it created space for something new, even though it wasn't
Right.
related to,
Yeah, that makes
so
sense. Yeah.
it can develop from there.
That's cool.
Tell them about loss. So loss is an unavoidable, I mean, assuming unavoidable is a word, it keeps coming up as
See what it does here.
highlighted there, but
Well, it's trying to say inevitable, but I mean, I think unavoidable is
oh,
right.
inevitable. Yeah, that's probably a better way of saying it too. Component of life. You'll experience loss of many different kinds. Loss of a loved one, ending of a relationship, loss of a job or employment. While some of these losses may not be avoidable, how you respond to them is within your control.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that last part's brilliant.
Thank you. And tell them about regret. Regret can weigh you down. It can feel like an emotional heavyweight if it gets out of control. Many times in life, you won't know if you're making the right decision, but criticizing yourself afterwards can be detrimental to your mental and emotional well-being. Learn from your mistakes and move on.
Nice.
And regret is one of those words that have been more conscious of in and out in my life. It's kind of seeped in and then kind of gone away and come back. And I can honestly say that I think most people would have some things that they regret. There's one aspect of my life that's a major, huge, like elephant in the room that I regret about how I handled a certain situation. But I can honestly say I don't have a lot of regrets, and most of them are smaller regrets. So that was
Right.
looking back, I was like, you know what? Regret's an important one to cover.
Definitely.
And I
Yeah.
don't know how many I have left, but I don't know how much time we have either. So we
Yeah,
don't have to get to all of mine.
for sure. Yeah, we've been going for, I think an hour and a half since we started, and probably the call's been about
Okay,
an
so
hour. So we could
we can
probably
certainly end it there. I know I just
like
kind
that.
of, like I said, I wasn't sure how much content. I just was going with like letting the process happen. So,
Yeah, no, I
but
love it.
I really
Yeah,
enjoyed this whole
me too.
um course and this assignment, I guess if that's what you want to call it, of the prayer, because the
Yeah,
coaching is something that we've done in the other levels, but having this interaction of sharing perspectives of these statements and creating the prayer, it was just a wonderful process. I was going to say before a process, because I told you I love the Canadian accent.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and the way you say it, it's definitely different from the American way, and I love it. But it was so beautiful. So thank you for sharing. And
Hey, thank you
what
very
a
much.
great way. And I like the idea of using this to maybe help people in the regular coaching kind of open up.
Yeah,
Because when
definitely,
you talk about ancestral trauma, that might be even harder for people to share,
for sure.
ancestral
Yeah,
trauma. If they can't even share like basic stuff in their own life, they may not even be able to be ready to share ancestral trauma. But it's almost like a nice way to learn how to kind of go in the back door and
it
break,
is.
like an icebreaker.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. Then they start talking about that word and what it means to them. Then all of a sudden, you can attach it to, okay, well, how did that come about? Why do you have that thought about that word? And then boom, all of a sudden a story comes out. There you go. Yeah, exactly. Back door kind of, right?
Yeah, get
Yes.
it in, help people open up and release and
Yes.
bring it out on paper as best we can as coaches. So
Another tool for the toolbox, right? Yeah.
absolutely. Well, it was great. I feel blessed because we actually got two
Oh,
times to work together
yeah.
in
Same
our
here,
group
Lisa. Yeah.
courses. So
Very much always enjoy our time together. And yeah, it is great to
as
get
do
to know
I.
you. And good luck on, well, I'll see you on the call, but
Yeah.
just want to say, good luck on your exam coming up there too. Knock
Thank
on
you.
wood it
Thank
goes. I'm
you.
sure you'll be A plus. You'll be all licensed and ready to go. So that's great.
Fingers crossed. Yes. Thank
Exactly.
you.
Yeah. Fingers
And
crossed.
good luck with I know your podcast is a little bit on hold, but good luck with you're focusing more on the business. So great.
Yeah.
Best wishes to you on that.
Thank you.
And I am going back to confidence. I have
Yes.
complete confidence that you will make it happen.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Your words always mean a lot to me. And like I say, I still have a couple of
Thank
our
you.
mantras from our coaching call. I still use them, not every day, but pretty dang close. There was one, I used one for about, I think 45 straight days, the I create me. And so I still bring a couple of those up. So yeah, again,
Yeah, you
thanks,
had
Lisa.
mentioned that
Yeah,
in a call or in a message, so that
yeah,
made me feel wonderful. Thank you for that.
yeah. Oh, thank you for sure.
My
All right, well,
pleasure.
enjoy the rest of your night. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days.
Thanks.
I'll make
Yes,
sure
I'll see you
I
on
post this.
Wednesday. Sounds
Sounds
great.
good.
Be well, Matt.
Yeah, bye, Elise. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too.